Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall Psychic all the way from the Gold Coast. Well, welcome to the wonderful world of Zoom. It's our official second week using this facility, and it's still a little bit of a learning curve, particularly for me, who's not particularly techo savvy, but look, we're all getting there. So this week it's been a really interesting week around the world. We're going to, elected, I suppose is the right word, a new pope for those that are Catholic, and that's a very big deal. They're in the process now of electing who's going to lead the Catholic Church, and that is a big deal, even if you're not Catholic. So, and there's been many other weather events, and there's also been elections, and here in Australia we had a big election over the weekend. We're all breathing a sigh of relief now that the television can go back to normal and we can just have some normal advertising like selling tea bags or coffee for a change instead of politicians. So this week the Simply Tarot card of the week is the Devil. Now, look, the Devil is one of those ambiguous sort of cards where people sort of don't quite understand it. Yes, I mean, I suppose if you're religious and the devil is sort of something that you're a little bit scared of, but in tarot world, it's jealousy or trouble, able to break the chains that were holding you back or binding you. So it's really interesting because sometimes we do have jealousy or trouble in our lives, and sometimes it's avoidable. It's just one of those life events that seems to follow us around. And then for other people, it can be jealousy. It can be are you a little bit green-eyed of somebody else, or is somebody else a little bit green-eyed of you? And sometimes trouble does follow us. But it's also showing us that the chains are very loosely placed around the man and the woman's neck here, that they are able to break the chains that are binding them or holding them back with a little bit of effort. So it's sort of like maybe you're restricting or limiting yourself. Maybe you're the one that's holding yourself back. Maybe you need to be able to remove those chains that are holding you back. What is it that's holding you back? And sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's fear of the unknown. Sometimes it's just, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to take that giant leap yet. Whatever it might be, explore it, understand it, work with it, and then look for a solution. Look for an expiry date that, I'm going to be out of this situation by a certain date, and work towards that. Turn this card into a positive. I don't believe anything is negative. I think that we're sent challenges and little restrictions and hurdles along the way, and it's character building, and it helps us find new and different solutions to what we would have found to a problem previously. So when the Devil card comes out in a reading, don't panic. Don't say, oh my goodness, my life's going backwards. No, look at it as there might be a couple of little speed bumps along the way, a few little adjustments there that we need to make, and we need to be ready to move on. And that's what I think the card really basically means. So this week, again, we've got a big week astrologically. We seem to be saying that a lot lately, but we are. We have a lot of astrological stuff that's happening at the moment. The sun is in Taurus, so happy birthday to all the Tauruses. And I know for them, it's a bittersweet time of the year. Yes, they like the attention, but they don't necessarily like to think that somebody might have spent too much money, and particularly theirs, if it's your husband or your wife, they don't really want you to spend money on that birthday party, even though they like it and they enjoy it. But it's sort of like, oh, you've spent money. They don't really like spending money unless it's someone else's, not their own. So happy birthday to all the Tauruses. It's going to be a big year for you guys. You've still got Uranus, the planet of the unusual and the unexpected, is still making its way through your sign, still bringing about change. So make sure that you don't become too stubborn and too pig-headed and too locked into your own ideas of where you think your life's going, because Uranus will come along and say, well, no, that's not quite the plan. Bang, here we go. We're going to go in a different direction. So you need to be a little bit more flexible, Taurus. And I know that's hard, but if you can be open to new ideas and new suggestions, things don't necessarily need to be disruptive for you. So we're going to move on to the rest of what's sort of happening. So, and when I talk about things, I'm talking about them in a way that it will affect each and every sign, but I will describe the 4 signs that will affect the most, and then it washes over everybody else. So at the moment, we've got the North Node, which is not a planet, which is one of the nodes of the moon that is sitting in Pisces. Now, the North Node is showing all water signs, which is Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio, and the opposite sign of Virgo. And again, washing over to the remaining 8 signs. It's showing us the way forward. Now, it's conjunct or holding hands Saturn, the planet of discipline. Now, Saturn is also the planet of structure. It gives us our stickability. It gives us determination. It just sort of stabilizes everything. So with these 2 holding hands here, I feel that we're being shown the way forward, but we're being shown the way forward in a very structured, organized, definite sort of manner. It's not necessarily the time to get the speedboat out and, race to the finish line. It's about, consistency. It's about diligence. It's about looking out for what you need to be doing, or what are you aspiring to achieve? Where are you hoping to go with things or situations in your life at the moment? Does it need a bit of structure? Does it need a little bit more thought? Does it need a little bit more planning? Well, Saturn will give you that benefit of that here. But also, we've got to remember it's sitting in Pisces, so it's also asking for a little bit of a creative flair, or asking you to sort of think outside the square, look at it from many different angles, and then when you feel comfortable, proceed. It's, it might sound simple, but not everything is simple in life, but it certainly can be made easier with a little bit of forethought and some planning, and sort of really looking at everything before you make that final decision and make that push forward. Now we're going to move on to the Aries section of the chart, which is quite dominant this week. So when I'm talking about Aries, and we're talking about Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, and the opposite sign of Libra. And we're also talking about it washing over the remaining 8 signs. Now, Neptune has just moved into Aries, and he's holding hands or conjunct Venus. Venus is conjunct Mercury, and Mercury is conjunct or holding hands with Chiron. So this is 4 planets that are all sort of standing in a row, all holding hands, or all known in astrological terms as conjunct. So for a conjunction, they need to be fairly tight. It needs to be within 7 degrees, from 0 to 7 degrees. Anything above that, we might allow a tiny bit up to about 10, but it's really sort of very, very watered down. This is a very tight conjunction of planets. It's not a stellium, because a stellium means 3. So it's a plethora of planets that, 3 planets and one Arabian part, one karmic part, that are all holding hands together. So Neptune is the planet of creativity, of illusion and delusion. So Neptune here is asking us to think outside the square. Let's look for some very creative, very different answers. It's also asking us to be a little bit me first, of sort of putting it into the context of I. What do I need? What do I need? And then then we can start to look at what you might need, or being more inclusive. So Neptune here is starting off the train of planets, and it's asking us to sort of put our creative hat on, think outside the square. There may be a little bit of creativity there. Make sure we don't delude ourselves. Make sure that we are really very clear in the way that we're looking at things. That, Neptune can sometimes take us into a fog, and it's not until we come out the other side, or nearing the end of the fog, do we start to see the pathway. Now, I'm going to stick my neck out here and say I think Neptune at the moment is very clear. Everything is sort of very much almost like black or white. It's very transparent. Everything is sort of where it should be. So you need to be very clear if you're making decisions, no matter what they are, whether they're connected with work, family, love, buying a new car, whatever it may be. Make sure that your intentions, and everything about it before you sign on the dotted line or you agree to something. Make sure that everything is very clear in your world, that you're comfortable to proceed forward. So for those of you that are looking for love, sort of Neptune is conjunct Venus, the planet of love and affection at the moment, which also rules relationships as well. So if you're a person that's seeking love, then maybe you need to be very clear on what it is that you want in a relationship and what you don't want. For those that aren't seeking love, it can be a sort of a little bit of an adjustment period, or sort of really getting closer with your partner now, that you really sit down and start talking about some long range plans, some things that have maybe not necessarily been bothering you, but things that have been percolating away in the background that have finally now come to a point that you can present your idea or your thoughts to that person, and we can sit down and have some open, honest communication, because we've also got Venus conjunct Mercury. So Mercury is the planet of communication. Great time to talk about things. Great time, to talk about things, particularly with a loved one, or with somebody that you have a really good rapport with. So it's, the communication's very clear. Again, we're taking it back to me, myself, and I, because this is where the energy is at the moment. So make sure if you're having these conversations and you're talking in the I, that you don't forget to just swap it over and include it to be we. We might like to do this, or we might like to do that, or what are your thoughts? Take it back to them so that they can have the I moment. It's really, really important. Now, the final part of this conjunction is Chiron. Now, Chiron is where we look in the chart for the what's known as the wounded healer. It's where we've got to heal from past lives, things that we've brought into this lifetime that not necessarily are they karmic lessons, but they're things that we have to heal from. Now, there may be many times in your life that you get into a situation and you think, gee, that feels familiar. I'm sure I've done this lesson before. And you look back through your life and think, no, I haven't actually. Well, that's when you're having a little deja vu moment, when you're having that little past life memory that's sort of filtering back into this current life, and you think, aha, that's what that's about. And sometimes the lessons or the things that we need to heal from are really, really intense and seem very deep rooted and can take a long time. Doesn't necessarily mean because you've acknowledged it or it's there that we're actually healing it completely. We might just be scratching the surface. So if you're a fire sign, make sure that your healing that's going on at the moment is really intense. You're really believing in it. You're really working towards it. And you're really letting go of a lot of old anger and fear and things that aren't necessarily positive in your life, that, you're working through them and you're acknowledging them and then setting them free. And, you might work out your own little ritual that you put them all in a balloon and then you cut the cord and sort of say they're gone, or pop them with a pin, whatever works for you. It's no one size fits all. So the final area of astrology I want to talk about today is Jupiter in Gemini. Now, Jupiter's been in Gemini for a while, and yes, it is affecting the air signs, which is Gemini, Libra and Aquarius, but the opposite sign of Sagittarius, but it is washing over to all of us. So it's like you really need to be aware of what's going on in your life. What is it that you want to bring about in your life? What are the new opportunities that you're trying to bring about? Bring about them with new thoughts, new ways of looking at things, because Gemini is about communication. Yes, quite often the Gemini energy is about local information, but it can also be about light bulb moments, bing, 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 they're gone. So make sure that you write them down or catch them on your phone or something like that, so you can go back and revisit these wonderful light bulb moments a little bit later on, because that's really important. So we're going to wrap up with Mars. Mars is still sitting in Leo, so again affecting the fire signs, Leo, Sagittarius, Aries, opposite sign of Aquarius. So it's really important that there's a lot of activity going on there at the moment. You can, whether a person's a Leo or not, you can see there's a lot of activity going on around the world where people are vying for attention and wanting to be in the news cycle and all this sort of thing. So there's a lot of stuff happening. But for us mere mortals, it's just a time that we can really shine. So it doesn't matter what your star sign is. Get out of bed, get motivated, strut your stuff, show the world what you're made of, because you have really something important to share with everybody. So we're going to take our first caller today, and it's Maria Maria, I beg your pardon, in Toronto and Ontario in Canada. Are you there, Marie? Hello, Marie.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you, sweetie.
Hello?
Do you have a question I can answer for you, sweetie?
No particular question.
Okay, so
Just a
there
general.
must have been a reason why you contacted the show. Was there something I can answer for you, or?
Well, let's see. My near future lookout. I had to retire. No, I didn't want to. I was physically ill. I want to know if that's going to get any better.
Okay. All right, Marie. Now, first things first. Yes, sweetie?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, first things first, we're not allowed to discuss health issues because we're not doctors, but I can look at it on an energetic level. And look, I'm really sorry that your hand was forced and you had to retire, and it wasn't, what you'd planned to do. It was sort of forced upon you. What they're showing me was that this was building up for quite some time, whether or not you wanted to acknowledge that there was changes in your energy levels, and you kept pushing yourself, is what they're showing me, until it got to a point of no return. So, sometimes I think we're our own worst enemy. We think, oh yeah, I've just had I'm just a bit tired today, or we say, oh, I'm getting old, that's why I'm tired, or I'm achy, or whatever. We don't necessarily give it the attention that we should give it, and say, stop and look and listen and say, hang on a minute, why has this changed? What have I done differently in my life? Is it a warning signal that something's not right? That I should go and see a doctor. But, we're human and we sort of push on and all those sort of things. And sometimes changes are instigated in a way that because it's the next step, it's something that maybe we wouldn't have done willingly, and we're forced into making a change. And I know it's very difficult when you've all of a sudden had to make a change like this, where you weren't ready to retire, you hadn't planned everything around that all of a sudden that this came as a shock. What they're showing me is on an energetic level, things are starting to slowly improve. And I'm going to say to you, I don't know that your retirement is necessarily going to be the way it's been, because I'm seeing by the second half of this year, your energy levels are bouncing back. You're starting to feel better. You're not necessarily looking to go back to work in a paid job, but I did feel that the wheels of change are happening, and you're going to start looking at sort of what you can do from home. Something that really makes your heart sing, but also at the same time can make you a little bit of money. Because I feel there's going to be something that's going to start off as like a little bit of a hobby, and it ends up becoming quite a lucrative little sideline business that you'll look back in 12 months' time and say, gee, I never saw that coming. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Yeah, now I feel that my days are full, and I feel like I'm satisfied, and I've got a little bit of extra money coming in, and life's pretty good. So I think things will change and things will improve, Marie. And you're feeling a lot better in yourself than what you have done in a long time. So it's interesting though, because I felt that I don't know that you would have ever been really ready to say, okay, I'm going to officially retire. I think it had to be forced on you. So I hope that's helped you, Marie.
Sorry?
I said, I hope that's helped you, Marie.
That helps me a lot. Thank you very kindly.
You're very, very welcome.
I
So just
appreciate it.
be open to what's going to come in, Marie. Like it might come in a dream, it might be a thought, you might be watching telly, you might be having a conversation with someone else, and then that idea will percolate, and it might just be something that you're going to start off doing for yourself, and you show it to a friend and they say, oh, I'd like one of them. Or, I know Mary would like one of them, and it's sort of, it snowballs from there. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. It will happen organically. Enjoy this little bit of time and give yourself a little bit of rest. It's, it's okay to sit down and watch a movie or read a book or go for a stroll in the park. Your life's your own now, and that's what you need to be looking at it. So that's where we're going to leave Marie. We're going to talk with, now this is, I'm going to get really wrong, is look, I'm not even going to try and pronounce your name because I know I'm going to get it wrong. You're from California, and my name's Amanda. How can I help you?
You can call me Mary. That's my middle name. It's better for you.
Mary. Okay, we'll use that. How are you, dear? How can I help you today?
That's fine.
Do you have a question I can answer for you, sweetie?
No, just like relationship-wise.
Okay, if we're going to discuss relationship, is there somebody special in your life? If so, I'd just like their first initial, please.
Yeah, there is somebody, but we're on and off. Right now, we're just friends now, and then it's like, give me mixed feelings and emotions, and I don't know. I don't know if he's worth it or not.
Okay, so what's their first initial, sweetie? So I can go into their soul, and I don't need their first name because we don't need to broadcast it to the world, but their first initial will help me.
An R. An R.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. Look, I don't think you're wrong in the way that you've assessed this situation. It's sort of like the first thing that they're giving me is there's a lot of change going on around them. I don't even know that they're really willing to change. It's sort of like something that they pull out of thin air and say, oh, I'm going through changes, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm very busy. And it's sort of almost like an avoidance situation to really deal with the issues at hand. Look, I'm not saying that this person doesn't care for you. I think they do. And I think they, somewhere deep down in their heart and their soul, they really wanted this to work out. But I don't think they really know how to make that happen. It's sort of like they've never really processed or let go of any old hurts from the past. And this sort of all comes sweeping back in. And what if I'm making a mistake? And then, the emotions go all over the shop. And then it's sort of like, we don't connect as well as what we did. And then you're trying to sort of play catch up and trying to make things right again. And the other person sort of feels then that they're being smothered, and it's just sort of a vicious cycle. Now, I'm not saying that it's all completely their problem and, you're completely blameless in this situation. I think it's a bit of a two-way street here. You've both been hurt in the past. You've both got different emotions swirling around, and at different times one takes the lead and the other one takes the back seat. Look, I'm not sure that this is the right relationship for either one of you, because it seems to be you're never really in sync. You're never really on the same page. And when something's like that, then it's indicating to me that it's not right. And what they're showing me on a soul level for you is the fact that once you sort of accept this and sort of look at it and say, okay, I gave it my best shot over and over and over and over again, there's nothing more I can give. I have to shut the door on it for my own peace of mind, my own sanity. Then you open yourself up to new love, that there will be a new relationship that will come in, and it will be really strong and dynamic, and it'll be right. It'll be everything that you need it to be. Look, you're not asking for anything that's impossible. All that you're asking for is somebody that you can have a great conversation with, fall in love with, and build a life with, and that you've both got similar outlooks on life and heading in the same direction, and stay true to each other. That's not too much to ask. And this next person that's coming into your life will give you all of that and more. And, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of happiness, and it's like, wow, I didn't know I could be this happy. I didn't know life could be this good. And it's sort of like it's a real change, because most of your life has been a struggle in one form or another. As you've got over one drama, there's another one to take its place. Well, it's now time we flip that on its head and we start to bring in some joy and some peace and some happiness and some laughter, and, life to become a little bit predictable, not necessarily boring, but predictable, that we can sort of see what's ahead of us. We can make plans, and this is a good thing. So, it's not a bad thing at all. I feel very, very comfortable with where your life's going to be heading in the next, little while, because, they were showing me that if we can sort of work through this process with this situation, this relationship at the moment with the person with the letter R, once we've dealt with that and we've put that in the past and, give you a little bit of time to heal, not much, then in comes this new exciting right sort of relationship. And they were showing me on your timeline around about August. The other thing that they were showing me was question marks around where you're living. So have you been thinking about moving, or are you just thinking about changing some furniture around?
Oh yeah, I've been wanting to move for like 14 years already. I'm trying to want to move so bad. Yeah, I've been wanting to move.
Yeah, well, there's big things happening this year. So, new relationship, changes of where you're living, and it's sort of like I want to throw my arms wide open and say, look, I'm ready to receive, that you're ready to receive, you're ready to go forward, you're ready to sort of take life on in a different sort of way. And it's a good thing, because it's time now for you to start receiving. You've done a lot of giving, you've done a lot of helping of other people. It's now time to swing that pendulum back around the other way and have you be the one to be on the receiving end for a change. But, it's sort of, your dreams are going to get stronger. You're certainly getting a lot stronger in yourself, and you're sort of looking at people now and sort of saying, well, hang on a minute. I'm not necessarily going to break that friendship, but I'm going to pull away from that, because it's me doing all the giving and you doing all the taking. Unless it can sort of swing back around and be more equal, I'm not going to put that much energy in anymore. Is that what you've been finding's been happening?
Yes, it's been happening all the time like that. I'm talking about that. That's what he does. I noticed that that's what he does. Just take until he can't take, until I have no more to take, and then he'll disappear for a little bit, and then come back and do the same thing over again.
Yeah, but that's not healthy. That's not healthy. You can't be the one doing all the giving and someone else does all the taking, because then the scales are out of balance. There's got to be a balance. There's got to be give and take. And, sometimes when somebody does all the taking, it's because they're trying to fill themselves up, that they feel so insecure in themselves that they don't know anything different. Do you know what I mean? Like they've got to keep taking, because they're trying to fill up. It's like trying to fill up a glass with water, and it's got a hole in the bottom and it keeps leaking out. And, you're the one with the tap that keeps trying to fill it, and you can't keep doing that, because then life is out of balance and things aren't right, and that prevents you from gaining what should be coming into your life, because you're so focused on that it narrows everything down, if that makes any sense. And
it
it's
does
hard.
a lot of things.
Yeah, but it's hard though
Very.
because you still care for this person, and you don't want to sort of feel like you're cutting them off when they might need you the most. But you've got to start putting yourself back into what do I need? What are my needs? And once you can feel that, then you can start looking at how I can share that. You've given way too much away of yourself, not just in this situation, but many situations in your life. And we've got to swing that back around now. But look, I think, the second half of this year, and we're not far off the second half of this year, is going to be a really interesting sort of time for you because things are going to start to develop much, much stronger than what they have. And you just got to be really careful what you wish for. Anything that you voice out aloud, make sure it's exactly what you want. Because if, you might just get things that you've said it once and you didn't really mean it. And we don't want the universe to pick up on that and say, oh, that's what she wants. We'll grant her that wish. You've got to be very, very careful. So if you want new love, then send that out to the universe. If you want a new place to live with, where things are a lot more calm and better scenery or whatever the case may be, put that out there or write it on a piece of paper. Like it's your intent of what you want to achieve. And, you've got really strong powers within yourself. You're a very switched on person and you have a lot of natural intuition. I want to see that starting to work for you now, instead of you just being like this tap that keeps trying to fill up this glass that's got a hole in the bottom and it just leaks out the bottom all the time. I want you to start filling you and filling your life with the things that you desire and you would like in your life. And they're coming. And you really do deserve them. So I apologise again that I didn't even attempt to pronounce your first name. It looks like a beautiful name on my screen, and I didn't want to make
Thank you very much.
full of myself.
No,
But
you're fine.
you've got a lovely energy, and I know that you're going to do really, really well within your life. And particularly if you start giving to yourself, that's the first step. And it might be a little bit difficult. Sometimes we got to practice buying ourselves a very, very small gift and giving it to ourselves and saying, this is for you because you deserve it. You're such a nice person. Oh, thank you very much. I've always wanted that color of nail polish. And it's not a big thing, but it's learning to give to yourself. And by voicing it out aloud, it might sound a bit silly as you're doing that, but you're starting to reaffirm that you deserve to receive. And that's really important. So have a great rest of your night, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you.
You're very
I appreciate it.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, sweetie. It's always nice to talk to people from different parts of the world because we have, different ways of looking at things and we all have different ways of pronouncing a word. This week in Australia, it's going to be Mother's Day. So I want to sort of wish all the mums in Australia, particularly happy Mother's Day. And for those of you around the rest of the world and you celebrate on a different day, we're going to have another Mother's Day for you. You can celebrate with us here in Australia because it is a very, very special time and we should honour those women that gave birth to us. And, even if you're not a mum, you still deserve to be celebrated. You're a woman, you've got loving energy, you've got motherly energy that you share, even though you may not have been blessed with children. It is still a very special day. And I think we should not just call it Mother's Day, but, Women's Day as well, where we celebrate the women that are really important and mean a lot to us in our world, that it's a really important time. So this week I want to leave you with a song that is by Whitney Houston, and it's called The Greatest Love of All. So if you really enjoy that song, put it on your turntable, put it on your device and listen to Whitney Houston and The Greatest Love of All. Until next week, bye for now.